more like me, Rose or Sydney? Neither is exactly like me, but probably Sydney's closer than Rose, and that's hard because Sydney's smarter than me for sure. It makes it difficult to write some of her lines. I have to go do some lightning research before she spouts off her techno-babble about geology or cars.
Pretty sure Sydney's smarter than everyone, so.
She is, and it's tough. But so in that aspect, I'm certainly not her clone, but I am like her in the way that I overthink things like she does. Rose is very impulsive, and that's not me so much. I couldn't punch first and ask questions later like she does, and that's why we love her. That's what makes her awesome. But that's not so much my style. But that is why I like to write her. It's fun to kind of slip into the skin of someone who's totally not like you. You guys know, it's not something I'm directly involved in. That's the producer's pet project right now. What I do know is they are, I think, going to do some crowdsourcing. The first movie didn't do as well financially as they had wanted, and so a lot of people would have just kind of let it sink dead in the water, and I thought that would be the end. And so I'm really surprised that they're so passionate about this project that they're going to keep going and try to do this route. So we'll see what happens. If I'm involved, I think they might ask me to do like some rewards for people who donate. So I may be signing a bunch of books or things like that. So we'll see how that goes. I really don't know much else from that. I think they've been holding back because of Silver Shadows, and right now, like, my social media feeds are all like Silver Shadows, and so they're kind of waiting until this buzz fades before we throw the next thing at you. And so I'll pass on whatever they've got to say, let people know. Yeah, I know if they do crowdsourcing, it's going to be the kind of thing where if they don't reach their goal, they aren't collecting any money, so it's not like, they're going to take money and then, oh, sorry, we didn't make the movie, but now we can go on vacation. It's nothing like that. They'll only keep money if they hit their goal. And I don't know if they're going to try for a theatrical release again or like do something online, kind of like the Veronica Mars project. Again, I'm as excited as you guys to sort of see what will happen.
We're going to get another look into Rose and Dimitri's life currently.
Another look into Rose and Dimitri's life currently. Well, I can tell you, you'll see more of them in the Ruby Circle, the Sixth Bloodlines book, which comes out in February. You're actually going to see a lot of old characters coming back into that. As I like to say, they're getting the band back together, and a dated reference. But because there's some big things that go down to finish off the series, and it's kind of beyond Sydney and Adrian. So Rose and Dimitri are in there helping, but I'm guessing you are leading more towards something like their own book or another story or something like that. And at the moment, there aren't any plans to do like a hardcore series in the Vampire Academy world, either a spin-off or going back to Rose and Dimitri. What I may end up doing is keeping touch with that world with like short stories or novellas or collection of things or one-offs. I'm just not sure I'm ready to commit to another 6-book series in that world. I kind of want to write some other things. But it's hard to leave those guys. And I know it's hard for you guys to leave them as well. So to answer your question, yes, you'll see more of them, but I can't say in much more detail what it'll be because I'm not even sure yet what that's going to look like. Yes, Pink.
So Silver Shadows was really short. Is the Ruby Circle going to be substantially longer? I mean, White put a lot in, but how is it going to compare to the Ruby Circle that's longer?
Silver Shadows was short. That was 100,000 words. I love it when people are always like, I wish she'd write faster. And I'm like, how long does it take you to write? No, I know what you mean. It's shorter, especially compared to Fiery Heart was longer than it was, and the Vampire Academy books, the ending books, like, oh my God, Last Sacrifice was like a doorstop for sure. Ruby Circle is currently in its first draft about the same length, and usually they add on with each draft. So I would expect it to be a little longer than Silver Shadows. I'm waiting to get my editor's feedback, and that will also sort of influence how long it's going to be, whether she says, Richelle, that you've gone terribly awry, we need to scrap all this and rewrite it, then there's no telling what the length may end up being. But usually in the revision process, you're honing and elaborating on things, and I think that's going to happen. There's a couple of, I don't like to give things away, but there's a couple of scenes I think that people would really, really like to see expanded on. So I'll see what I can do to bump the length up. They don't like it to go too much higher, the publishers, because you know they're always counting their pennies too. So they're always like, why don't you just make it $2 if you're going to make it that long? So we'll see. It'll be a little bit longer.
With promise, Rose said that she found out where Dimitri was from Mason, but when I finished the third book, I didn't really see any of that. Did that just happen in between the 2 books, or?
Gosh, you're making me stretch into my memory. I think, you know, and I'm not, you know, I'm unsure of this myself, so I hope I'm not telling you something wrong simply out of ignorance. I thought that she got the information about Dimitri being what he was, for those who haven't read The Under Shadow Kiss, from Mason, and that I think she somehow assumed he would go to Russia because that was where he was from. I don't remember. She may have very well said in Blood Promise that Mason told her, and if so, that was my error. But I honestly can't remember. It's terrible. Now I'm going to have to look that up and find out. Can you repeat that?
Did you base Adrian off of anybody in your life?
Did I base Adrian off of anyone in my life? No, there's no one quite like Adrian. I have not met anyone like him. Adrian was designed with a couple purposes in mind. He was meant to be this sort of temptation or alternate choice for Rose, and in doing so, I kind of made him Dimitri's opposite, because Dimitri is, as we know, he's very serious. He's Mr. Responsibility, and that's just how he rolls. And Adrian is kind of the opposite of that, and so that was kind of how I approached his character. He just does what he wants. He doesn't have a filter. You know, that's how he rolls through life. And Rose kind of has those tendencies, which is why she's attracted to him and why all of that develops. So no, I mean, I know there are Adrians out there in the world. We love them and they break our hearts, but there wasn't anyone in particular I based them on.
I found it interesting that one of your degrees was in comparative religion.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to that discipline, and do you feel like you draw from it a lot in a lot of your writings?
How'd I end up in comparative religion? It was because I love mythology and folklore so much, actually, and there aren't a lot of mythology degrees out there, and so when I wanted to keep studying post-college, I found this program at Western Michigan University, Comparative Religion, that let me look at, you know, along with different faiths of the world, the mythology that went along with it. And so that was kind of how I ended up there. And I have definitely used that degree in my writings. Certainly my Georgina series, my first adult series, that deals a lot, in particular with like Christian demonology and mythology. Age of X, my most recent adult series, has a ton of stuff in there because it draws so much on different world religions, and also it has a lot of Roman history. And my thesis specifically in grad school was about, it sounds so boring when I say it was about heretical religion in the later Roman Empire. So I wrote 80 pages on that, and it actually has come into use in my writing. So never discount what you use in school, for sure.
You have got so many different series on a daily basis or monthly basis. Are you working on different projects, or do you really just pick one and focus on that until it's finished, or how do you work?
I would love to work on one project at a time. Usually I've got two that are kind of competing with each other, and it'll be the one I'm creating and then the one before it that I'm revising. So, for example, right now I'm writing the first draft of a project which hasn't been announced, and I hope that news comes out soon. But any day now, the Ruby Circle's first draft is going to come back to me from my editor with revision notes, and so I'll have to put the new project aside, turn over to Ruby Circle, fix it up to her satisfaction, send it back, and then I'll get to go back and write the new one for a little while until Ruby Circle comes back with more revision notes. And so that's kind of usually how it works. It's usually 2 at a time like that. I'm never writing 2 new things simultaneously, like 2 fresh drafts. It's usually one brand new one and then kind of fixing up whatever I had just finished. Does that make sense?
Block, and if you do, how do you personally get through that?
I definitely experience writer's block, and for me, writer's block, because of the way I write, it comes when I haven't planned out a book well enough. Some authors I know, they can sit down with no plan whatsoever, start typing and magic happens. For me, I need a plan every day. I need to know what I'm going to write. And I hit writer's block if I kind of shorted myself in my master plan for the book, because then I kind of run into a wall and I don't know what I'm going to write there. And if I'm not under deadline, the best way for me to get over it is to just not think about writing. I found if you sit and think, what am I going to write, what am I going to write, it just kind of makes it worse. And those are the days it's just time to walk away, go watch a movie, go for a drive, just do anything that's going to stop you thinking about writing. And then often the solution will come when I least expect it. Now, if I've got a deadline, the book is due in 2 days, I've just got to put something on the page, and it's not always good. But as I was just saying, there's usually 3 or 4 rounds of revisions, and so my hope in that case is that we can fix it up later if it comes to that.
Really think of the Vampire Academy.
What did I really think of the Vampire Academy movie? I liked the Vampire Academy movie. I had a lot of fun with that. I went into it with a very open attitude, which I think is different from some of the fans. I think if a fan's image of a book isn't translated exactly like it's in their head, they feel very threatened. For me, I have no fear of losing control of the book because I made the book. I know how it is. I know it's the real deal. And you can do all sorts of interpretations of it, and I'm always secure in my place with it. So I was very excited to see, what, if you guys want to do something wild or whatever, and it's good. And I think they did a smart job with it. I liked the cast quite a bit. I really love Zoe Deutsch as Rose. It's almost impossible for me to write her like in Bloodlines now without seeing Zoe, so that's been really cool. I think the only criticism I could make of the movie is I wish it could have been longer, but that was budget. They didn't have that money. A lot of people think that in a post-Twilight world, they must throw money at vampire movies. It's actually the opposite. It was so hard to get anyone to offer up money for a vampire movie. So Vampire Academy was dealing with a $20 million budget versus something like Divergent, which had $80 million, because dystopian is hot and in demand. So they could not do a 2.5-hour movie, and so they had to chop up some things, and they filmed longer scenes, which was really great. They just couldn't put it all in there, and so I think some of the editing it shows, and it's too bad because it does a disservice to what was some really great stuff. But overall, I had fun with it. I own it, and whenever people come to my house now, they want to watch Vampire Academy because we just got this new media room, and so it's exciting because we want to show off the media room. We're like, hey, you guys want to watch a movie? And everyone's like, yeah, let's watch Vampire Academy. And I'm always kind of like, again? I love it, but I've seen it like 100 times now every time someone comes to my house, and I'm kind of like, we got Lord of the Rings on Blu-ray. You want to watch that? No, Vampire Academy? All right, let's do it. So.
Does end up happening? Do you have any idea who you would want to play Eddie? Like how you picture yourself playing him?
No, if Frostbite ends up happening, do I know who I'd want to play Eddie? I don't. I didn't have any role in the casting before, and I wouldn't this time, and I am totally fine with that. There's never going to be a perfect casting solution for anyone, even if I picked some. If I took the Eddie in my head and made him appear right here, half of you would stand up and walk out in outrage because I had just ruined your book in my choice, and that's just how it is. We have these pictures in our heads, and it's hard to do that. So I really don't have anyone in mind. If they keep the same casting people they did, I felt like most of those characters were pretty sound, so I hope they do a good job. It'll be tough. I think as much as I would love to see a Frostbite movie, there's a part of me that cringes a little because I know there will be fan wars online with casting, both for Eddie and for Adrian. Because it's again, people are passionate about their books, and there was last time. My Facebook wall was covered with people making very serious threats at each other based on how they liked or didn't like the actors, and I don't want that kind of dissension over my books. I want us all to be VA friends. So here's hoping it's a little more peaceable next time.
So I know that it's still in editing processes, but now that you've written out everything, who is your favorite character to write? Not your favorite character, your favorite character to write.
My favorite character to write? It's really tough because so many they've all got something neat about them, especially when I'm writing first person and I'm getting into that person's voice. I pick people who have very distinct voices, and that's what I like. I like people who you can just tell, like you would know whose words those are, even if it wasn't labeled. One of the greatest compliments I got about Silver Shadows was someone who said they could tell Cindy and Adrian's chapters without them being labeled because their voices came through. And Adrian, he is probably one of my favorites, both because he doesn't have a filter, and I just love that, being over the top with him, just being able to lay it all out there, what he's thinking. But I also like writing him because he does often flip to very serious sides, and that's fun too. I like characters who are flawed. I like characters who struggle, because I think we do too. None of us are perfect, and I find perfect characters to be boring, and he's just someone who's always trying to do the right thing, and some days it's like, one step forward, 2 steps back for him. So I'll say he's kind of one of my top picks for the favorite to write.
Say you have like overlap in your writing or your editing. How do you keep the characters from bleeding into, for instance, Georgina not winding up with Abe or something like that? Which I actually think would be pretty cool.
It would be if I used to do crossovers of my books. Maybe when I retire, I can like get a pseudonym and do fan fiction crossovers of all my characters. Put it online anonymously and see who notices. They're all so distinct to me. I just couldn't do it. I can't even, when I'm in the mode, when I have switched into Bloodline's world, I'm in Bloodlines. Georgina's nowhere near it. So I don't really have a better answer than that, just that once I'm seeing through that lens, that is the world